All right, so teens and their TV sets. According to a Gallup poll report, 64% of teens aged 13 to 17 have TVs in their rooms. Here is part of the footnote to this report. These results are based on telephone interviews with a randomly selected national sample of 1,028 teenagers in the Gallup poll panel of households aged 13 to 17. For results based on the sample, one can say that the maximum error attributed to sampling and other random effects is plus or minus 3 percentage points. In addition to sampling error, question, wording, and practical difficulties in conducting surveys can introduce error or bias into the findings of public opinion polls. So, part A, we omit the confidence level from the footnote. Use what you have learned to determine the confidence level, assuming that Gallup took an SRS. All right, so we have our sample proportion, right? We have p hat is equal to 0.64. We also have the number in the sample, n is equal to 1028. And the maximum margin of error is plus or minus 3 percentage points. So, yeah, we'll have that here. So that's the maximum margin of error. So I can even put here, margin of error is equal to 0.03, right? 3 percentage points. All right, so let's go ahead and go into our inequality. So z star, so this is what we're looking for, times the square root of p hat times 1 minus p hat all over n, and that has to be less than or equal to the margin of error, right? So, at least for this problem, this means, right, we have z star times the square root. So it was 0.64 and then times 0.36 over 1028. And this has to be less than or equal to the 3 percentage points, so 0.03. So we can do some basic algebra here. So this is z star. So since this is the radical of a fraction, I can do times the square root of 0.64 times 0.36, right? Over the square root of 1028 is less than or equal to 0.03. And now I can multiply both sides by the inverse of this, right? So this would just be z star has to be less than or equal to 0.03 times the square root of 1028 over the square root of 0.64 times 0.36. All right, and if you were to plug this in your calculator, right, this stuff into your calculator, you would get z star less than or equal to 2. Okay, so we have to find that z value that is closest to the value of 2. Well, remember from our past problems, a 99% confidence interval, right, associated with a z value, right, of 2.575. That's for a 99%. For a 98% confidence, or I mean a 95% confidence interval, right? That associated with a z value of 1.96. It looks like this 95% is going to be our candidate, right? And then the last one we did was 90% confidence interval associated with a z value of 1.645. So as we can see, the 95% confidence interval is our guy that's closest to these conditions that were placed in this Gallup poll, right? So let's go ahead and go down here. So this is close to the typical z star equals, and it was 1.96, right? 1.96 used for a 95% confidence interval. Okay, So this means the confidence of this poll, right? The confidence is likely 95%. All right. So let's go ahead and look at part B. Give an example of a practical difficulty that could lead to a biased result for the survey. Well, so this was part A, right? Now let's do part B. Teens are hard to reach and often unwilling to participate in surveys. Okay, so a non-responsive bias is a major, what they call practical difficulty for this type of poll.